Hi, everyone. So glad to be here with you all today. My name is Adriana, and we are talking about a topic that is on everyone's minds. Everyone is talking about it, but it's wildly misunderstood. We are going to be talking about creatine, and I'm sure some of you may be like, creatine, bodybuilders, athletes. We are here to talk all about why it's so much more, and if you're serious about your longevity game and aging well, this is a product and something you should be thinking about and talking about. I am joined here today with Dr. Erin. She is our head of product innovation and scientific affairs at Shaklee. She is going to be debunking the myths. She's going to be talking to us about the science and telling us why it's really a must-have in any nutritional regimen. So excited to jump in. Erin, let's get into it.
Okay.
So creatine is everywhere. Everyone's talking about it, but this is something that's been around for decades. What has changed in the science that now it's a hot topic again?
Yeah. So actually centuries. So creatine was discovered almost 200 years ago in the 1830s, and it is one of the best researched molecules out there. Over thousands of clinical studies on this product. And many people may not know this, but your body can actually make and store creatine, okay? And 95 to 98% of the creatine in your body is stored in your muscle. So that's why a lot of that early research was done on muscle and performance benefits, right? And it kind of got its notoriety in the 1990s. So there was an Olympian who won Olympic gold, and he attributed his winnings to taking creatine. So as you mentioned, a lot of people were taking creatine in, 90s, in the late 1990s, early 2000s for those performance, muscle, volumizing benefits. But science doesn't stand still, right? And the scientists, they really appreciated what creatine was doing in our body. And we'll get into this, I'm sure, in a little bit more detail. But what it does is it recycles energy that our body has already used. And that's needed when we need these like quick bursts of energy. And what the scientists have realized is, yes, it seems obvious, muscle needs quick bursts of energy when we're lifting things, when we're sprinting, when we're climbing stairs. But a lot of other tissues need quick bursts of energy too. So think your brain, right? If you're thinking really hard, if you're trying to concentrate, focus on something, when your brain is, under stress, it needs a quick burst of energy. And that's why creatine is so powerful for it. Similarly, your immune cells when it's fighting an infection, your heart when you're under stress. So they've really understood that creatine is valuable across all of our different body systems. All of our cells need it to help provide that quick burst of energy when it's really needed.
Okay, so you talk about energy, and I feel like in the longevity conversation, we're hearing more and more about this concept of cellular energy.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, where does creatine really fit into that picture when they talk about cellular energy?
Okay, so please interrupt me. This is not a super complicated concept, but a little bit of science here. Okay, so our body needs energy, right? It needs energy to do all the things, to breathe, to walk upstairs, to digest food, to fight off an infection. And how we get that energy is from the food that we eat. Okay, so we have breakfast, we have lunch, our body breaks it down into those little building blocks, and those building blocks are used by our body inside of all of the cells in our body to make energy. And that energy molecule that our cells use is called ATP. Okay, so our body uses that ATP to power every single thing that it does. All those things that I just mentioned, but it uses it quickly, right? And it really doesn't store it.
Okay.
So what happens if you need energy quickly? It's not like you can rush into the kitchen and eat something and wait for your body to digest.
Right.
You need energy quickly. So what creatine does is it takes that energy, that ATP that your body has already used, and it recycles it so your body can use it again. Okay? Does that make sense? So
I'm following.
You eat the food, your body uses those building blocks from the food to make energy, your body uses that energy, and then it can recycle it.
Got it.
So that your body can use it again in those high demand situations.
So I'm following you, and I'm thinking personally of why does that matter, especially as we age? Because again, creatine, you're hearing it pop up, longevity, brain function. So talk to us about how that ATP is especially important as we get older.
Okay, so let's step back. What are the different ways that we can get creatine? So first we can get it from our diet, right? So what foods are rich in creatine? Meat, especially red meat, is rich in creatine.
Okay.
Fish, especially fatty fish, things like salmon, are rich in creatine. The one thing that happens as we get older is our appetite starts to decline. So we're eating less, and especially we're eating less protein. So we're not getting as much creatine from our diet as we get older as we were when you're younger. So that's one thing.
Okay.
Another thing is our body can actually make creatine naturally. So we make creatine in our liver, for example, and as we're getting older, our body has a harder time making creatine. So we're getting less creatine from our diet. Our body is naturally making less. We also have a harder time storing it.
Yeah.
So once we make creatine, we get it from our diet, it has to be taken up into our cells.
Yeah.
Our body has a harder time taking it up into our cells, and it also has a harder time storing it. This is an interesting thing too. I mentioned earlier, 95 to 98% of the creatine in our body is stored in our muscle. What's one thing that happens as we get older?
Yeah.
We start to lose muscle,
That's right.
right? So if you have less muscle, you have less space for your creatine to be stored. So you're eating less, you're making less, it's having a harder time getting into your cells, you're storing less. And then the other thing is our energy efficiency declines as we get older. So what do I mean by that? I think I'm getting to that phase in life where, when you're younger and all spry, it's super easy to get up off the ground, right? It's super easy to climb stairs, but it just gets harder. So we have higher energy needs as we're getting older. So we're not only able to, not make it and store the creatine that helps power those different functions, but we're also just needing more. So that's why something like creatine is really, really important. I mean, throughout our entire lives, but especially as we're getting older and those energy needs increase and the amount of creatine that we're making and getting and storing is declining.
That makes sense. And I know you said about going up the stairs. Tell me, does that energy, that cellular energy, does it also relate to when I'm having brain fog, when my son is telling me, Mommy, we just talked about that yesterday? That's the same energy bucket, right?
So, as I mentioned, our body is made up of cells, right? And every single cell in our body needs energy to function.
Yep.
There are some cells, some tissues that have really high energy needs. So, for example, our brain, it only makes up about 20% of our body weight, but it's consuming over 2%. Did I say 22? 2% of our body weight, but it's consuming over
that's a heavy brain.
2%. 2% of our body weight, but it's consuming over 20% of our body's total energy. So our brain needs a lot of energy, right? And it especially needs that quick energy.
Yeah.
So that's when you're learning something new, when you're thinking about something hard, when it's all those stressor situations, right?
Are draining your energy.
Your cells are under stress, and when they're under stress, their energy demands increase.
Yeah.
So that's why creatine is so valuable under those situations, because it needs that quick energy to fuel those different activities. So you can learn more, so you can focus, so you can think about something, so when you're in a stressful situation, you can be alert and quick.
Yes.
Exactly.
And is that what the research is showing? Is that where it's kind of shifting to?
Right.
What you said earlier was that the research seemed to be more focused on muscle but now, what are we seeing as it relates to the brain and what you were mentioning?
Exactly what I was saying. The research originally was focused on the muscle performance-specific benefits, but appreciating that there are many cells in our body, our brain, our heart, our immune cells that need those quick bursts of energy. They're starting to do research on those tissues and those cell types as well. And it seems like, there's general benefits for everybody, but the benefits really seem to be the most impactful under those stressor situations. So those stressor situations are when our brain, when our heart, when our immune cells need that quick energy. So stressor situations for the brain, for example, would be just getting older. Our brain has higher energy needs. When you're learning something new, when you're trying to focus, all of those things that I mentioned, when they're, maybe stressor doesn't sound, like the right word, but just when it's being, stressed in some way that says
being
like,
pushed, challenged.
I need fuel, I need energy to power this.
But that's
this activity.
everyday life, right?
Yes.
Everyday life, we have a situation where we have to be quick on our feet, that we have to think, what am I going to do? What's the next step? There's so many. That's just everyday life, I feel like. So
I should have mentioned too, I missed this comment. So we talked a little bit about energy that we get from food, right? Yeah. So when we eat the food, it's broken down into those individual building blocks, and our body uses those building blocks to make energy in the form of ATP. And that happens inside of our cells in this structure called mitochondria, if you remember that from middle school science, right? And another thing that's happening as we're getting older, and especially in our brain, is the health of our mitochondria start to decline, okay? So our ability to make energy from the food that we're eating is starting to go down too. Yeah. So that's another reason why being able to recycle the energy that we do have is really, really important in those high demand tissues.
That makes total sense. And I'm going to ask you something specifically. So you're talking about that creatine levels decline as we age. Yep. How is this then especially important to women in midlife as we age and get to different stages of our life?
Yeah. So, if we think about as we're getting older, I've mentioned some of these things, what's happening. But one thing that happens with women in particular as they get older is they start to lose muscle. So women naturally have less lean body mass, less muscle than men. So even prior to that phase in their life where they're starting to really lose muscle, they're already storing less creatine. And as they're transitioning, through these different phases of life and losing that muscle, they have even less creatine. So they don't have that reserve to help, recycle and provide that quick burst of energy when they need it. And then also, there's a lot of hormonal changes that happen with women. And we know those hormones are important for so many things. And one thing it's really important for is mitochondrial health, which I just talked about, right? So those mitochondria is what's converting or actually making energy inside cells. And if the mitochondria aren't as efficient, aren't as healthy, they're not able to efficiently produce that energy. So it's like both sides of the equation, with women and also just with aging in general, that we're not as efficiently making energy and we're not as efficiently recycling it.
So what are some of the things that you think someone would feel if they start to supplement with creatine?
Oh, gosh. So I think it depends on, and maybe this is a great opportunity to talk about Creatine Plus, right? Because, typical creatines on the market, they're formulated with creatine, only creatine. The creatine you want to be looking for is the creatine monohydrate. That is what I mentioned, those thousands of clinical studies that have been done. That is the specific form of creatine that has been studied, that is highly bioavailable, that has been shown, across multiple studies to have numerous benefits. But typically those products on the market, they contain exclusively creatine. And we've learned today that what that creatine is doing is it's recycling used energy. Okay. Right? It's not helping the body produce energy. It's just taking energy that's
what you have left.
What your body has already used and recycling it.
Okay.
So I think, we've talked about all the things that happen as we're getting older. And one of them is that the health of our mitochondria starts to decline. Yeah. So when we were developing our creatine product, we were really thinking about that entire energy cycle, right? How our body inside of our cells is making energy, recycling it, activating it. So of course it contains the creatine, but we also included some ingredients that really help support the health of our mitochondria. So you remember why that's important? Right?
Pop quiz.
So I've said this a few times, but when we eat food, we break it down, and those building blocks in our mitochondria are used to make energy, or ATP. So our product contains polyphenols, muscadine, for example, that's really going to help to support the health of those mitochondria. So it's going to help to really optimize the production of the ATP or the energy inside of our cells. And then, of course, we also include creatine. So we have, as we're getting older, we're not consuming as much creatine. Our body isn't making it as well. We're not storing it. We're losing muscle, so there's less space to store it. So we have that creatine, again, that can take that energy that we've already used and recycle it for those moments when we need the quick bursts.
Yes.
So remember, we, of course, the muscle specific, lifting for things, walking, sprinting, lifting heavy weights, but then also all the things you also taught, the brain, I'm thinking, I'm learning, I have that afternoon, fog, slump. It's going to support that. And then the last thing we included was magnesium. So why is magnesium important? We can make ATP all day long. We can recycle ATP all day long, but your body actually has to turn it on or activate it in order for your body to be able to use it. Otherwise, it's just going to sit there.
It's just sitting there.
Right? So that's what magnesium is going to do. It's actually going to bind to that energy molecule, to that ATP, so it's now active and your body can use it. Yeah. So what, with the, just creatine alone products, I think you're going to see some performance benefits. You're going to see, any of those moments when you need that quick burst of energy. Yeah. But I think it's really, really important to be supporting energy holistically. Your body's ability to make energy.
That's right.
And then your body's ability to recycle it and actually activate it so it can use it.
I think that makes sense.
Does that make sense? Ask questions.
Thank you. No, it makes sense. And it makes me think about all the creatines that are out there that, to your point, it is, and correct me if I'm saying this, but what I'm hearing is that it's recycling. So it is kind of waking up, you reusing the ATP that we have left in our body. But to your earlier point, we don't have that much left. Yeah. So that's what makes this creatine different, is that it actually is helping your body generate more and then turning it on.
Exactly. It's like a tank of gas, right? We're helping to fill up the gas tank.
Yes.
And then keep recycling it.
Yes.
And then,
not just like on E,
on
on E, on E, a little bit up, on E, a little bit up.
So we're supporting the whole cellular energy.
I see. Now, you had me thinking, because there is, I think, still some myths or especially, let me say this, especially as women, I've heard so many times, I'm not going to take creatine. I don't want to bulk up. I don't want to gain weight. So I think there's still this connection in some people's minds that it's going to do something like that. Can you talk to us about, is that true? Is it going to make me gain weight?
No. Okay. So one thing, when we consume creatine, it has to get into our cells.
Okay.
And when it moves into our cells, it actually takes water with it.
Okay.
So some of that weight gain, it's really just water weight, because the creatine is pulling water into your cells.
Okay.
It goes away after a few days. It's really most common, and we can get into what this means, if you do a loading phase. So if you're really concerned about it, skip the loading phase, make sure you're staying hydrated, make sure you're taking it consistently every day, and the likelihood of that's going to go down. But like I said, it's really just water weight. You're not gaining fat. It's just pulling the water into the tissues when the creatine goes in, and it goes away after a couple days.
Oh, that's perfect. So then let me ask you this, because we did get a few questions in the past few days about creatine and our product that I want to ask you. But let me ask you, again, creatine is hot, hot, hot. I'm seeing it all over my social media. People are asking about it, talking about it. Why would you say that? And I think people think, okay, I know I have to every day think about my nutrition. Every day I have to think about, I need more protein in my diet. Why would you say that creatine, and creatine plus for that matter, is a non-negotiable for a daily kind of part of your daily regimen, especially, again, for people who are thinking about aging well and thinking about their longevity journey?
Yeah, so I'm just going to start with an analogy. Protein is very hot right now too.
Yeah.
And the reason protein is so hot, because, like we've talked about, another thing that happens as we get older is we start to lose muscle. So we want to give your body the protein so it can maintain and build that muscle. Another thing that's happening as we're getting older is our energy efficiency is going down. We talked about all the reasons why, from the health of our mitochondria to our diet, from, what we're eating, how much we're eating, to how we're able to, make different things like creatine, how we can store it, how we can take it up into our cells. Yeah. There are just so many things stacked up against us when it comes to energy efficiency. And as we're getting older, we need more energy to do those same things that we did, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So creatine's one of those, those things that you're really going to feel a difference with, because you're giving your body those building blocks to support energy production by supporting the health of your mitochondria, giving your body the creatine to help recycle, to give you that burst of energy. I think that's what you're really going to feel, right? Is when you have those high demands, that you're going to start noticing I usually forget why I'm walking into the room, right? I know why I walked into this room. Or, just those high demand, high, stressor situations when you need that quick energy burst, you're going to have the resources available to do it.
And I think you said it right, high stressors, but I think it's everyday life.
Yeah.
I just find just getting through, waking up, having to get things ready for the day, working, now having to go and do more things. I do feel in general like it's like a little bit of a struggle. It's more of a drain. I'm exhausted mentally, physically. And so what I'm hearing you say is that if you start incorporating creatine into your everyday routine, those kind of things start to feel a little bit more.
Because you have that energy available to fuel
That's awesome.
That activity.
Let me ask, and we're going to get to the questions that you all asked. Let me pull them up. But let me ask you a question that it made me. How long would you say, so if someone started taking creatine, how long would you say it would take for them to start feeling, if they're just taking it regularly, I know you talked about loading, so no loading, just regular, I'm adding it to my routine. How long will it take for me to feel it?
Yeah, so I'm going to caveat it that everybody's different.
That's right.
So without a loading phase, and maybe I should explain what a loading phase is really quickly?
I hear about it all the time.
Yeah, so the Creatine Plus product is 5 grams of micronized creatine plus the polyphenols and the magnesium. So the recommended serving size is 5 grams of the Creatine Plus, just 1 scoop daily.
Easy.
Okay. Yeah, so with that, you're going to probably see the muscle benefits first within, 2 to 4 weeks. And the reason for that is those tissues, those cells saturate first. And what I mean by that is the creatine, remember we talked about creatine has to go into the cells.
Yeah.
So it's going to go into those muscle cells first. And then it'll go into other cells, your brain, your bone, your heart, your immune cells. So with those benefits, it's going to take a little bit longer, maybe 4 to 6 weeks to see those benefits. But if you do want to see those benefits a little bit quicker, you could do what is referred to as a loading phase.
Okay.
So what a loading phase is what we're recommending is that you do 2 scoops of creatine plus. So you're getting 10 grams of creatine daily, and you do that for 5 to 7 days. And then
for a week.
And then after that first week, you go down to that maintenance phase, just the 1 scoop or 5 grams.
Okay.
So what that's going to do is it's going to saturate those tissues more quickly. So it's going to saturate the muscle more quickly and then move on and start saturating the brain and the bone and all the other cells. So once those tissues become saturated, you're going to start just feeling and noticing those benefits more quickly.
Okay.
Like we talked about earlier, though, if you are concerned about the bloating, the loading phase can exacerbate that because you're doing more creatine.
Okay.
It's going to pull more water into the cells. You might notice a little bit more bloating. But again, after a week, once you go back to that maintenance phase, it's going to go away.
But loading is not necessary.
Not necessary. You're going to see the benefits regardless of whether you do a loading phase or not. It just might take a little bit longer.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. And let me tell you, because I've tried the product, I've added it to my smoothies. I've added it even to juice. You really can't taste anything.
No, it's unflavored.
It dissolves. Like it's very easy. Like it becomes really a daily habit. So that's great. So let me start asking some of these questions from the audience. So, you talked about loading. We talked about adding it. When is there an ideal time during the day to take creatine? Morning, at night? Does it matter?
So it doesn't matter. It's not like caffeine where you want to take it, just right before you exercise. With creatine, it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm going to caveat it though. When those tissues are saturating, when you're pulling that creatine into your tissues, what they found in the research is that warm tissue. So maybe while you're exercising, does a better job of taking it up. So maybe during that loading phase, during the first couple of weeks, it might be good to take it during exercise, right before, because it's going to be pulled into those tissues just more efficiently.
That's a good tip.
But then afterwards, it really doesn't matter. Your
Okay.
tissues are saturated. They're going to stay saturated. So you can drink it any time of day.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Now you said 5 grams.
Yeah.
How much is good for, is there a difference when we talk about brain health? Because I think, to me, that was my big aha, like, oh, I
Yeah.
do want that. I do need that. So is there a difference if I'm looking for those kind of benefits?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with muscle. A lot of the research is between 2.5 and 5 grams that you're going
Okay.
to see those muscle-specific benefits. The research on brain health ranges from 5 grams up to 20 grams. I think that sweet spot is between 5 and 10 grams.
Okay.
To see those brain-specific
Okay.
benefits.
So 1 scoop
Yeah,
is
it's fine.
what I need.
And
Perfect.
we're, like I said before, we're all different. I think it's good to kind of play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
See what works for you.
And then how often should I be taking creatine?
Yeah, so this is definitely a daily use product.
Okay.
This isn't something you take, just on the days you're exercising or just on the days
Yeah.
when you feel like you're gonna,
Feel
have
a
to
little-
think hard
yeah.
or whatever it is. Because like we've talked about, it has to get into our cells, into our tissues,
Okay.
in order to deliver those benefits. So you want to be taking it every single day.
Is there so then now I'm thinking, is there a limit? Like, is there a certain, should I stop taking it? Should I give my body a break, or
No,
I can take it forever
you
and
can take
be
it
just
forever.
fine?
Yep.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
those thousands of studies we talked about at the beginning, they're not only on efficacy but safety too, right? And we know that that's foundational to Shaklee, right? So just the quality and safety of this product has really been vetted and thought through.
That's amazing. I love to hear how and that just resonated with me in terms of how it is something that's different and really a optimal way to approach your energy, ATP, all of that. I hope this helped everyone. To me, at least, it helped answer a lot of questions when it related to
Good.
creatine
Good.
and why I need it, why people need it. So thank you so much for
welcome.
being with us, Dr. Erin.
You're very welcome.
And thank you all. And we will always be here to answer all of your questions. And we will see you next time.